And we're going down the agenda. We have the roll call by Ms. Adams, invocation by Reverend Sean Buchanan, pledge of allegiance by Councilman Johnson. Go to item number 1 in City Manager Report, sir.
Thank you, Mayor McCaw, members of the council. The Greenbrier Road Four-Winds Circle pavement replacement was awarded to K&G, and that work is in process. We're working on purchasing and installing solar streetlights in Montebello, Whispering Springs subdivision, and that's being awarded to primary construction, awaiting the arrival of lights, and we're looking at an August timeframe for that particular one. The metal roof repairs at Fire Station 3 has been awarded to Landmark Metal Builders, and that's expected to commence next month. And then the impact fee study has been awarded to Tischler Bice. There will be some council action with regards to this. We'll probably be recommending a moratorium on impact fees in general, but the sewer connection fee will need to increase, so that will be an offset. So we're not looking at increases in impact fees, just changes focusing on the sewer connection fee as the one that will be moving forward. So you'll be voting on that later on here in the summer. And then finally, Summit Challenge is this weekend. And that's first folks are loading at 4:30 in the morning. That's awfully early.
We start out there very early in the morning, yes.
And then, of course, the Wine, Beer, and Spirits Festival at the park starts at 11. And that's all I have right now.
Everybody's favorite. Any discussion items for the city manager? Then we'll proceed on, go to our public hearings. Item number 3, Resolution 2024-033, staff report, Mr. McLaughlin. Mr. Pregler.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. There we go. So the city has initiated an abandonment for a portion of right-of-way along the south side of Charleston Road between the roadway and Cochise Crossroad Shopping Center, as you can see depicted on the map. The area exceeds the 100-foot right-of-way width needed for Charleston Road and therefore serves no public benefit. Per state law, once abandoned, ownership of the property will be transferred to the adjacent property owner. In this case, it will be Cochise Crossroads, where it can be used for future development. Now, the city is proposing to construct a sewer line, which will extend from State Route 90, continue through the abandonment area, and conclude at the eastern property line of parcel 107-16-026H, which again is this eastern property line over here. A sewer easement is required for any portions of a sewer line located on private property to allow for maintenance by the city. Now, since the abandonment area will be owned by a private entity, a sewer easement is required. Therefore, a 22.5-foot wide easement will be reserved as part of the abandonment request. The City Council authorized staff to proceed with the abandonment at their March 14th meeting. Per the city's abandonment procedure, staff subsequently notified all utility companies for any comment or objection. No objections from the utility companies have been received. The P&Z Commission did hear this request at their May 15th meeting and did recommend approval. This does conclude staff's report, Mr. Mayor.
Discussion items. All right, and we proceed to Resolution 2024-034.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let me change my, here we go. So, New Hope Fellowship Church is initiating a conditional use permit to allow for a 1,200 square foot building addition, which will be used to expand church services and activities. The property is located at 5420 East Desert Shadows Drive, as shown on the map. The property is 7.54 acres. Now, a little background regarding the church property. In 1994, the subject property was annexed into the city as part of a larger annexation that included the current Mesa Verde and Campstone subdivisions. The city assigned the heavy industrial zoning district to the property as part of the annexation, which was the nearest equivalent to its former county zoning designation. In January 1995, the subject property was rezoned to single-family residential 36, which remains on the property today. Now, the SFR 36 district regulations classify places of worship as a conditional use that requires city council approval, hence the reason for the request. Now, it's important to note that the original church building was constructed just prior to the annexation and has been regarded as a legal nonconforming use that is allowed to continue in its current extent. Now, any expansion to the principal use, which we see here today, is subject to conditional use permitting requirements. This requirement does not apply to accessory uses, such as a classroom addition, which was completed in 1997. So, staff analyzed a number of criteria to determine if the expanded church use is compatible with the site and adjacent uses. Staff initially looked at property development standards. Now, the maximum lot coverage area for properties within the SFR 36 zoning district cannot exceed 30% of the overall site. With a 1,200 square foot addition, the total square footage of the entire church will be about 11,500 square feet, which is only 3.5% of the 7.54 acres, meeting that lot coverage requirement. And looking at the building setbacks, the new addition will be located 20 feet from the eastern property line, which does meet the minimum side yard setbacks of 20 feet as determined by the development code. And you can see the highlighted area right here. There's a 20-foot setback line located right here. Staff next looked at parking. The minimum number of parking spaces is determined by dividing the largest meeting area or sanctuary by 50. When using this calculation on the addition, the minimum number of parking spaces required is 54. However, the church is providing 70, which exceeds the minimum number of parking spaces. Traffic impacts were next considered by staff. According to the ITE trip generation manual, the average trip rate for churches on Sundays is 31.4 vehicles per 1,000 square feet of gross floor area. Based on this information, it is anticipated that the expansion will generate 37 more vehicle trips, which can be accommodated by the surrounding transportation network. Next, staff reviewed potential noise impacts. The city has a noise ordinance that indicates maximum decibel levels during daytime and nighttime hours. The church cannot exceed these levels. Although there's an existing 6-foot block wall along the eastern property line, the church has indicated that the following measures will be taken to reduce those noise impacts. They've indicated that all activities will be conducted inside the building. They've indicated that noise generation events, religious services with music, will only occur mid-Sunday morning. The expansion of the sanctuary will be masonry construction with insulated furred-out walls for sound absorption and blocking. There will be no doors or windows included in the new expansion, which could create sound leaks. Additional landscaping, such as trees, will be planted between the expansion and the neighborhood for further sound absorption. And the new playground area will be in the middle of the property, far removed from property lines, and will be open to the public. Lighting impacts was next considered. The church will need to meet the city's outdoor lighting code, which includes shielding all exterior lights, directing lights away from residential areas, and not exceeding lumen outputs. These will be reviewed during the site planning review process. However, the church has agreed to not light the main cross to further mitigate light impacts. Now, architectural design. The architecture on the building addition will be consistent with the existing building architecture, except for additional stone veneer, which will be added for aesthetic improvement. Some site improvements proposed are additional landscaping, which can be seen on the site plan here, and the concealment of some utilities. Now, the church is requesting a new cross be placed on the building, which will project 5 feet above the roof line. The church has indicated the cross will better identify the building as a place of worship. The cross will exceed the zoning height of 28 feet. However, according to the development code, it does exempt religious monuments, such as crosses, from the building height limitations. The applicant held a neighborhood meeting on April 19th at the church. A total of 5 individuals attended the meeting. A summary of the meeting has been attached to your packet. The city sent out a mailing to all property owners within 500 feet of the property, notifying them of the date and time of the hearing. The city received 2 written comments. One comment was concerned about the noise impacts, and another had no concerns. Both of these have been provided in your packets as well. Now, the Planning and Zoning Commission heard this item at their May 15th meeting, and both them and staff recommend approval of the resolution subject to the following conditions. 1, that the expansion of the sanctuary will be masonry construction with insulated furred-out walls for sound absorption and blocking. 2, there will be no doors or outdoor or windows included in the proposed addition, which could create sound leaks. 3, additional landscaping will be planted between the expansion and the neighborhood for further sun absorption. Trees shall be a minimum of 15 gallon and be identified on the city's low water drought tolerant plant list. And 4, that the new playground area will be in the middle of the property, setback as far from as practically feasible from adjacent property lines. So as a reminder, the City Council can accept staff's recommendations, they can revise the conditions, or they can certainly deny the request, as this is a discretionary permit. And with that, this concludes staff's report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions, concerns?
I have one.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm glad to hear that they're expanding their church. Seems like it's a good thing for them to be doing that. One question I had after reading some of the comments is, how often or how common is it for people to complain about churches being noisy? Is that a very common thing, or is that?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Landry, it really kind of varies based on the church, based on the location. For example, we do get noise complaints for St. Andrews for the bell ringing. A lot of times we'll get complaints from some of the neighbors. And other places we don't get any complaints at all. You know, the intent of these conditions are try to mitigate some potential impacts coming down the road, which is why we place these conditions in place for that reason. So.
I was just kind of curious after reading that, because my daughter and I, we went there years ago just to visit. It didn't seem it didn't get too wild when we were there. So I was just kind of curious. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Any other discussion points? Thank you, sir. And we'll go to Resolution 2024-035. This was a consent agenda, weeks ago, but now it's back on to new business.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. So Mr. Sean Lawley is in the process of selling his properties within the city. He was contacted by the title company stating that the development agreements recorded on the various properties is creating a cloud or an encumbrance on the title and requested that the agreements be terminated. So staff reviewed all of the agreements and conditions within and determined that the conditions had been met and or are no longer applicable to future development. Therefore, staff is proceeding with the termination of the agreements. Now, the city processed a similar termination agreement with the mall back in 2020, so there is precedence for this particular process. So attached in your packet is the termination agreement signed by both Sean Lawley and the current property owner of the Lawley Ford property, Sanctuary Living Revocable Trust. And so the way that was explained to me from Mr. Lawley was that prior to the sale of this particular property, Sanctuary Revocable Trust will sell the property to Mr. Lawley, and then he will then turn around and sell it to the potential buyer for the rest of the properties. But that is why we have two separate signatures, one for Mr. Lawley and one for the Sanctuary Living Revocable Trust. Also included are each of the conditions in the development agreements and an explanation as to how each condition has been met. So this concludes staff's report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Questions? Discussion items? None? All right, thank you, sir. And we'll move to our presentations for today. Item number B, presentation by Tourism Commission. Mr. Aaron is with us. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, council members. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Thank you for having me here. I wanted to give you an update as to what we've been doing in the Tourism Commission. You've got a full commission, and they're very dedicated and motivated. And we've hit a point where we want some guidance before we put too much more work into projects that you don't necessarily want us to do. So I'm going to skip ahead on the slide deck here to the short, medium, and long-term slides and address those. This slide deck I briefed to the Sunrise Rotary. They invited me to just come and tell them what we do. It was a very informative brief. They were all very surprised as to what commissions in the city do, and it was well received all around. When I took over the chairmanship of this, I decided that I wanted to focus on short, medium, and long-term projects. Short-term being things that we can immediately affect. So we started looking at the centralized calendar. We figured that that was probably best addressed through a commercial app or through commercial means. The issue is that there is no centralized calendar for Cochise County. And so it's really hard to promote what's going on in Cochise County without having, or even Sierra Vista, without having a centralized calendar with everything on it. I found at least 20 calendars, all with different things on them. So, and as a business owner, if I were to go and put anything on those calendars, I would have to take an entire day and go to each one of those calendars and put them on there. So we were thinking that if an app could be made that could scrub those calendars and bring them all together, that would be the best option. And it's probably best addressed commercially, so I've been working with some other entities in town to look at that. The Visitor Center grand opening is coming up. We will be there representing the Tourism Commission and helping set up and break down for that. Hummingbird Month is kicking off, and we've been working with Tony and his crew on some ideas to promote Hummingbird Month. And we've also been attending the booth at the El Tour de Zona. We will be set up with the wine festival and helping the economic development group with their booth there. Part of what we do on that is we're working on providing itineraries. So this is a great place to get people that are coming here for a reason and give them itineraries to say, hey, come back again. You know, and when you do, recommend you stay here and then you go wine tasting, you know, out in Elgin, and then, you know, go to Tombstone and catch the fight at the OK Corral. Yeah, it's our way of trying to entice those people that are only here for a few days for a purpose to come back. So moving on to the midterm, the medium terms. Picture didn't come out very well. The graphic on this is actually Sierra Vista's in the center, but it shows what the hub looks like. What this idea of your vacation starts here. You know, we're trying to promote people staying in Sierra Vista and taking those day trips out, and by providing them a cookbook, if you will, of itineraries, we think that would work. We're also looking at putting signage on the highways. Particularly as you come into the city. And the signage would be promoting the hummingbird capital of Arizona, not the world. If you Google hummingbird capital of the world, Sierra Vista is the first thing that pops up. But we honestly don't have claim to that because, I mean, what entity is going to give that? So, but from what I understand, the state of Arizona has said that Sierra Vista is the capital of Arizona for hummingbirds. So we want to capitalize on that, put some signage up on the way into town, get some signage annotating the fact that we have that recognition. So the additional funding for local businesses to sponsor tournaments, we discussed that pretty much in depth, and that was an idea that I had come up with when talking to other businesses in town, like Urban Axe Yard. They had a tournament. The winner of the tournament for pretty much in all three categories, if I remember this right, he came from LA the night before. So he drove all night, got here, participated, won all these tournaments, and then went back home. But the point is, he came from LA to Sierra Vista because of a tournament. And I was talking to the owners of Urban Axe Yard, and they said, you know, if we had more money, we could increase the spread for that tournament. So instead of just doing a regional thing, they could go, you know, Midwest. So they could expand their influence and bring more people into town for those tournaments, having larger tournaments. Now I understand the gift clause, you know, as it negates us from doing anything with that. So we, as the council or as the commission, are looking at other ways of linking businesses with funding for that. So we're putting feelers out there for nonprofits and things of the like, so that we can connect businesses that want to do tournaments with money to help support those tournaments, if that makes any sense. All right. And then on to the long term. This is getting a lot of press, and this is the reason that I'm here today. My wife and I, when I retired from the Army, we took the RV and we went for a long drive. We drove to Florida. And along the way, whenever it was time to switch drivers, one of us would Google largest whatever near me. So we saw the largest pistachio, the largest spur, the largest bobber. Largest bobber, by the way, is not very big. And it's someplace in Texas, but it's just outside this nice little farmer's market that happened to be going on that day. And we discovered this farmer's market and spent more money there than we should have, only because of the largest bobber that was a disappointment. But with all that being said, we as a commission feel that Sierra Vista needs a pull, needs something to draw people off from the highway down into Sierra Vista. Being the hummingbird capital of Arizona, it just makes sense to have the largest hummingbird. Now, we've tossed around ideas to do a mesh hummingbird with topiaries, which would attract all the hummingbirds to the hummingbird statue, so it looked like it's being attacked. To having, there is a picture of the largest hummingbird statue that is, I believe that's in Nova Scotia. Something similar to that. A typo in some emails back and forth turned topiary into apiary, so then that got us thinking about a bird sanctuary type thing. So we come up with some great ideas, but before we go any further, we want to be sure that this is where you want us to go before we start looking at what it's going to cost, where we'd be putting it, and so forth. So that really is the reason I'm here today, is to find out if this is something that you're interested in us pursuing, and if it is, we will. If it's not, we'll find something different. And then the last part on the long-term piece is working with the Cochise County Tourism and Economic Council on other places or other things to bring tourism into the area. It's been suggested that there be a gondola to go to the top of one of the peaks. Now, I understand Miller's Peak is a wilderness protected area, and that's probably going to be, now, when I say long-term, this is a 10 to 20-year project, and it's not a Sierra Vista thing. It's a county thing. But these are things that we're tossing around and we're thinking of, and ways to work with the county to draw people in. Because going back to the hub, if there's more things to do in Cochise County, then Sierra Vista is going to see more tourism. So, in your package should be a request for a budget. We are asking for a $5,000 budget, and that is to help pay for signage, physical copies of the itineraries that we can hand to people while we're sitting at those booths, so that they can actually look at that and say, oh, well, you know what, I'm going to come back next month and we're going to do this. And then inside the visitor center itself, some directional signage and so forth along the floor, along the walls, just to get people into the back of the building where the visitor center is itself. And of note, it is, I had Hummingbird Capital of the World on there, but it will be Hummingbird Capital of Arizona. So that is all I had for you today. Thank you for putting up with my rambling, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Comments, discussion? Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. I think we can go ahead and go with Hummingbird Capital USA. I think that's okay. Let somebody challenge us. Let somebody else say they have the better capital than we do.
Let's put it out there.
Just we'll just claim
What's
it.
going to happen if we put the world? Nothing's
Yeah.
gonna
I mean, who's gonna challenge us? Are they gonna come out with a? How are they gonna measure the metric? We're just gonna do it. So let's go with USA. Let's go bigger than Arizona.
USA?
Yeah, that might be my
I'm all right
recommendation
with
anyway.
that.
USA. But I mean, because if you Google, if you ask Siri or ask Alexa right now, they'll say USA. It doesn't say Arizona. It says USA. But that's already in there. I didn't do that.
Siri said it.
Yeah, Siri said it. It must be true. I've been talking about this for a while. I would love to see a sign like that on I-10. I mean, like you have traveled all over the place, and I see the most random signs on different states and cities that say home of the whatever, biggest whatever. And yes, you go there and drive and just check it out. Take a picture of it. Sometimes disappointing, like you said. But I imagine there's us not having anything disappointing to do. A nice size hummingbird, whatever the designs ends up being, that'd be amazing for our area, for our city and our town, for the county. I like that you involve the other. We have a lot of things that are out there that are drawing people in. Sports things. I mean, soccer, softball, disc golf. So there's a lot of the same communities out there that are doing the same kind of thing that say, look, we want to have these bigger tournaments. They're all saying the same thing. We want to have these bigger tournaments. And people do travel from everywhere to win a little prize and just say they won this whatever in Sierra Vista. So it's like we're there. We just need some stuff to keep them here. And I agree with that part. It's like, the people from LA came and then they left. Right? So now we got to figure out how to hook them and stay a little bit longer and, do some stuff around the town. There's a lot of stuff to do here. But just kind of, like you said, working with the visitor center, maybe giving them a little bit more, hey, while you're here, while you're in town, here's some handouts, while you're, maybe people that sponsor the tournament or whatever it is, kind of entice them and tell them a little bit about our area. Like, maybe stay another night, like you mentioned, and work with our sister close by cities, towns that say, like Tombstone, Sonoya, things like that. It's a great idea. I love that. So yeah, I definitely like where this is going. I think it's definitely way past time for us to do something like this.
Some comments too. Yeah, thanks for being here and presenting this information to us. I had the same thoughts about, like, if we do a sign that says if Arizona, well, what happens if later on we decide, like, of the United States or the world or whatever. So I do like the idea of going bigger than that. And then a sign, investment in a sign, the lifespan or whatever of a sign is a very, very long time. So we put it there, and then it's good for like a long, long time. So I think that's a really cool draw. And then going down like the highway, you see like the thing. You're like, what is it? Like, I want to see this thing, and so it like draws you in, and like the other things. Like I saw the pistachio thing before too, and that's really cool. It does draw you in. So I think that it's really cool in embracing the hummingbird capital that we are. And if you go to Ramsey Canyon or any time, or like San Pedro, any place, people are serious about their birds. They really, really are. And so I think that's a really nice little group that we can, bring more and increase people's interest. So I think that's really, really cool. And then going through, looking at some of the long-term stuff, like I'm not too keen on any type of gondola idea, but the Rails to Trails idea, that bicycle highway on the abandoned railroad, I think that is super cool because we have so many cyclists in our area, and sometimes riding on the road is not very safe. You feel a little bit nervous sometimes. So I think having something like that and partnering with different groups, I think that would be a really cool way to have a safe place for cyclists. And a lot of times when people are cycling, they're going like 30, 60 miles. It's they're going a long ways. And having like the Tour de Zona coming in and the NAMI ride and things like that, I think that would be a really cool thing to bring people from other places, because we can do a bike ride any time of the year here in our community. So I think that's a really cool idea, and so I'm excited to see that down the road one day. So I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So I just want a little clarification. So basically we're looking at for either the largest hummingbird, which would be like a sculpture, or the topiary, or is that something that you guys? I know Angelica and Mark. Is that something that you would like the commission to pursue?
Yeah. Yeah.
Obviously it's gonna. We have to get all the information and stuff, but.
Right.
Yeah, it's gonna depend on the pricing.
Well,
right,
The
and
mental
that's-
structure.
I think we're just answering that we're on the same, that we like the path, or we're just answering, right, that was the question.
I like the
We like the
concept.
path they're going.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and I just
And
wanted to
the
know.
color.
Are we needing to approve this 5,000 if we're in support of that today? Do you need
Mr. Mayor,
consensus?
Mayor Pro Tem, we can make this part of the tourism division's work plan. We don't need to allocate a certain amount of
Oh,
funding.
okay.
And these things easily fit into what their scope already is. Staff can make these projects part of their regular work schedule.
Thanks, God. Sir.
If we were to pursue a sculpture, I would want to limit it to artists within Cochise County. We've got some great artists in Bisbee and elsewhere, and I would, that would be one of my caveats to approve a sculpture or something of that nature.
Keep it in-house.
We've actually had quite a few artists from the area, from within Cochise County, reach out.
Okay,
And
good.
that's-
It's good to hear,
and
Doctor.
That was another reason why I was like, okay, well, we need to know that you want this before we start, doing any kind of planning.
I'll just,
Yes,
I'll add I love all your ideas. I love all the time and effort, especially people of, you're a business owner and you're putting in all this time and effort. You're going to be there at the Wine, Beer, and Spirits Festival, and the whole commission you're already a busy group of people. So it really means a lot to us that you're putting in all this effort. And your map did show up on our printout, if it makes you feel better. And I'm in support of the initial 5,000, and then if we can someday feasibly make this happen, that would be nice. But thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. I'm in support as well. It's been long overdue, especially the signage. Only thing we see is Sarah Vista and Forward to the left, another 28 miles. But need to draw them down here. So thank you, sir.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
So we'll proceed to item number C, 2025 budget update. Ms. Jen.
Mayor and members of council, this is going to be your last budget update before your one-on-ones in June. Change up the order a little bit today. And start at the end. So we're going to start with the state shared revenue updates. So we received the updated state share revenues last Friday. Your first column is going to be the first round of the league's numbers. Second column is the revised numbers we received on Friday. Third column is what is already in the budget. And then the fourth column is the difference between the league's revised numbers and what we have in the budget. So we typically budget slightly less than the league's estimate, leaning more towards actuals and historical trend analysis. So originally we budgeted state shared revenues about $1 million less than what the league originally projected. We're currently still at $352,000 less than what they're projecting. So we believe this is still a conservative number, so we're not going to change the budget numbers as of now.
Question. Explain to us that $1 million, Jen.
Yes, sir. That was the $1 million offset for the urban revenue share, because when they changed the percentages and then the percentage to the cities, they did $2 million last year, $1 million this year, and we will not get any offsets next year.
Okay.
I'm going to turn it over to David for the FY24 tax revenue update.
Mayor, members of council, for those who've been kind of in the loop, statewide, the state is starting to see an economic downturn. They're currently about $1.8 billion short in their current year budget, and they are not meeting and have not really talked about the budget much yet. I think they're hoping to see which way the economy goes before they really delve into it more. That's kind of what the league has indicated to us. Locally, we are above budget, but what we have seen over the last 4 or 5 months is retail classification specific is down, food for home consumption, which is now a separate category but is technically retail, has been up. Some months the food for home consumption has carried the overall retail. Other months it is not. But for instance, in March, retail was down, basically flat. It was down 0.3%, $3,400, and food for home consumption was up $15,000 or 5%. But still, overall, the retail it's actually up 11.8 for the month, which is higher than it has been before. A couple other months, retail overall combined has been down. So that's what we're seeing. The others are kind of up and down. It depends. Hotel has been off a little bit. There might have been stuff on post last year. Others just tends to depend on the month, because one month it's up, one month it's down. The retail, being such a large portion of our budget, is the concern. Now, included in this year's upcoming projections are only half of the residential rental, because as you remember, that will go away in January. The state legislature did remove it. It was part of the deal they cut last year. So we'll have residential rental up until the end of December. Part of the law was that the residents are supposed to see the tax go away. It's not supposed to be absorbed in their rent, but as rents are going up in town overall and across the state, that may happen. So we'll get about $275,000 this year in residential rental tax. The rest of it will go away, because last fiscal year we got about $550,000. So that will go out over the 2 years. So do you have any questions on kind of the local economy where it's at?
No, sir.
Yeah, Mayor McCaw, members of the council, so we're seeing a few things on the revenue side that are fairly concerning going forward for us. The numbers on the state shared revenue being revised downward, and it points out a good reason why we always budget conservatively under their numbers in case something like this happens. But there is a reason for it, and that has to do with population growth in the valley, which is growing much faster relative to Sierra Vista. So if that trend continues, we're going to see those numbers continue to drift down, especially while the state is experiencing economic difficulties, across the valley and the rest of the state. So that is impacting us. Obviously, now we're starting to see a general trend of sales tax numbers drifting flat, and it's causing us to pull back on our revenue projections with sales tax, and then of course the legislature taking away the rental tax. So we have three pretty substantial hits to our revenue going forward. And this particular budget that we're presenting to you now is in good shape given the conservative revenue projections that we use. However, I don't think going forward, inflation is still hitting us. Costs of everything are going up, and if they continue to go up the way they are, the percentage in terms of costs are increasing more than the revenue growth that we're seeing right now. So how long this will last, nobody knows that. It's a little different than the 08 recession that started because of the housing downturn. We were able to see that and started implementing hiring freezes and freezes on raises and then projects and those kind of things at that time. Unfortunately, that lasted some 8 years or so, 8 or 9 years. So that was a very long recession. Sequestration on the fort, and cuts in defense spending played a large role in that as well for us. This is a little different because we don't have a lot of housing going on now anyway. We have some, but not to the extent that we had back in 08. This feels more like for old timers the stagflation days of the late 1970s. So where you had very high interest rates, very low economic growth, people were not spending, buying new homes and different things, and certainly interest rates aren't as high now as they were back in those days, but it has the same kind of feel that those days had. So what this means is we're going to have to monitor the economic conditions and the revenues very carefully throughout the next fiscal year, and be prepared to take the steps that we need to take in order to make sure that the city's finances stay healthy during that time. I hope it doesn't get as drastic as it did in 08, and we were able to weather that, but there was plenty of pain to go around while we were going through that. So that's, kind of what I see right now. The current budget is fine. The concern is always next year's budget and what's that going to look like. So we have plans in place to make changes if we need to. So that's kind of where why these updates are important going in today. Also, we still don't know what the state legislature is going to do. Last year, they balanced their budget on June 30th, and part of that was the rental tax deal. And we're looking at June 30th again, which means that it will probably happen about 3 days after you guys pass your tentative budget. Now that, of course, imposes a ceiling on your spending for the coming fiscal year, so we can revise downward if we get a downward surprise from the legislature. But obviously we can't go over that cap. But it would be nice if they would finish their business so we knew what was going to happen, after June 30th. But I don't anticipate that happening right now. So we're prepared for whatever happens as a result of that too. But hopefully the food tax won't be part of that deal.
Yes, sir.
One question, Chuck. Last year, we were concerned about the state legislature removing our ability to tax food, and that was turned down by Governor Hobbs. Is it coming back? And also, my question is the food tax included in these budget numbers now?
Well, the answer to your second question is yes. The food tax projections are in those numbers. And
So
while a lot of people don't like to pay sales tax on food, I get that, but it is a very stable revenue source.
Right.
The taxes on other items like cars, home remodelings, big ticket items, appliances, those are more sensitive to economic whims, but food is not. So to answer your first question, you're correct. Governor Hobbs did veto the attempt to remove the food tax, but she also vetoed initially the rental tax as well. So, of course, that came back in the budget deal.
But we would have to make some drastic adjustments if suddenly the state legislature raised its ugly head and took away our ability to tax food.
You're talking $4 million range, so you're talking between a half cent and a cent sales tax that just changed just to make up the difference in the loss of food tax. So we have not heard them talking about that. I don't know whether that's more scary than not, if you're not hearing about them. They're down to working once a week, so I assume somewhere in a back room in Phoenix, somebody's working on a budget deal. But for right now, we're unaware of what they're doing with the budget and whether that's on the table or not.
Thank you.
Then they go back into session next month.
The House is back in session on June 4th, Mr. Mayor.
June 4th.
So I don't like to bring bad news to you necessarily, but I think fair warning is in order.
Yep. All right, thank you, sir. But what does your crystal ball say?
Crystal ball's pretty cloudy. I should have brought it up here too.
Like an 8 ball now.
I've got one of those too.
Turn it upside down and see what it says.
In doubt, ask again.
I also have a magic wand and a pot of gold, but
I'll take the gold.
well, so.
Yes, ma'am.
So the updated total budget amount at this time is $172,291,723, with the general fund now at $54.5 million. Changes to the general fund. Ambulance revenue was earmarked early in the projection stage to keep an eye on, and as expected, the FY24 actuals are higher. So we increased the revenue from $2.8 million to $2.9 million to reflect the actuals. And also there was a PD grant for vests for $6,000. So the expenditures to balance this out, the outfitters are extremely backed up. They're the ones that change our vehicles and make them awesome for public safety and everyone. So they're unable to fit in 6 PD vehicles in the 1 ACO truck. So we're going to have to carry that over into fiscal year 25. So we removed the City Hall admin vehicle for $45,000 and decreased the IT office equipment line by $27,000. So HERF saw the biggest change. Highlighted changes to the HERF is we included, as mentioned in the previous presentation, the full amount for the BST reconstruction phase 2 appropriations for $25 million and the appropriate expenditure to match it. So the grants fund saw a little bit of updates as well. We increased revenue $408,000 to reflect some of the expenditures. So they have PD license plate, grant reader, the grappler carryover, ICAC equipment, and then the CIRT grants that don't have any city matches. Those are the best updates. Donations has also one update. There is a possible scoreboard donation in the amount of $400,000. Very excited. This concludes all the changes already included in the tentative budget book. Are there any questions so far?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Oh, are we, I don't know. Is that the whole place, the presentation for? Okay.
No, just the
Never
changes.
mind.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I'm going to jump in here and give some context to the next couple slides real quick.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
these next couple slides are in response to Mr. Johnson's request that we look at how we might be able to afford an additional raise for staff over inflation. And so this proposal for council to consider would be an additional 2% market shift that would happen in January. So Jen's going to go over here what the cost of that would be and then what the budget adjustments and cuts we would have to make in order for that to happen for your consideration.
So the 2% step increase is already worked into the budget. This is additional that would need to be changed if approved by council. So as Victoria said, it would be similar to FY24 where we did the 2% step increase in July and then did an additional 2% market adjustment in January. So the totals are broken down per fund. Part-time can vary greatly, so these are just the best estimates that we could have for what the changes in part-time would be. And again, the $382,000 on the bottom reflects the 2% market shift if we do it in January.
So it's just half a year.
Right.
All right. Any questions?
I got-
Yes, sir.
How below market would we be if we don't do this 2% market increase?
It should be the 95%.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, Mr. Benning, our positions for the most part fall in between 95 and 100%. They're not all around 95%. They are just trending in that direction.
So if approved by council, staff recommends that we move the fire station to door and parking lot expansion capital items into the capital improvement fund. and reduce the Roadrunner Park construction from $1 million to $500,000. So that would leave enough room in the general fund to allow for the personnel changes.
And will that move the park construction back?
Mr. Mayor, it's most likely. We do have some other possibilities with grants that we're looking at. The $500,000 could be used as match for an LWCF grant. Staff will be pursuing that in any case because it's a good idea. We're also looking at a potential rebate for the solar and the EV chargers that the city put in through the Schneider Electric project. So staff are currently working on that, and we estimate that rebate to be between maybe $700,000 and $1 million. If we were to get that, it would be allocated towards Roadrunner Park. So there are some other options for grants and additional funding.
Okay. Yes, sir.
So just let me make sure that I'm clear on this. So instead of the one-time 2%, this would be 2%.
2 plus 2 in January.
Okay.
2% in July, the step increase, and then a 2% market shift on January 1st.
Thank you for working on that.
So the upside is we hopefully at least slow down the trend towards 95% of market in our class comp plan from the 100% that we would prefer to be at, although it is very difficult to keep up with the Valley cities with regards to their raises. We simply don't have the tax base to do that. The downside is the full 4% is then baked into next year's budget, which has about $1.3 million additional that adds to the base of the budget for next fiscal year. So I'm never really as worried about this fiscal year as I am next fiscal year. So because I know it's coming. So.
All right.
Okay.
I'll-
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if we're moving on or I'm like not tracking today. Sorry. I feel like we should be on top of that because with everything that's going on in the economy, I think making sure that we take care of our people. Like Mr. Mayor, what do you always say? Community first.
People always.
Right. Exactly. And so I think that would really help our people to accommodate the economic realities and ensure that they aren't losing ground. We're not losing ground to inflation. I know it's kind of a tricky thing. Personnel is always the biggest part of any budget. You can't do anything without people, and if people are not happy, they can't do the things. So I feel like if we didn't do this, then it could maybe increase turnover or reduce productivity and mess with our recruitment and things like that. And I know that, there could be some short-term savings, but in the long term, if we're having to, training new employees is very expensive. So if we're having to do that all the time and if we're having turnover, then we lose a lot of that institutional knowledge. So I feel like, making sure that we're on top of that is very, very important. So I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I just like to know, going forward, this is the second time we did, well, it might be third time, let me get my facts right, I don't know right offhand, that we've done a mid-year market increase, another 2%. So 2 and 2, last year we did a 2 and 2. Can we look at maybe just doing a 3% escalation across the board instead of a 2%, which would equal a 2 and 2 in the long run? But it would help for the next fiscal year budgeting, because now we know, here's our escalation, here's what's going to be tapped into the next year, because like you said, we're not taking a hit on the 2 and 2 this year. The hit's going to come next year when it's actually a 4% total year raise that they got this year. So if we switch it to a 3% escalation to start and go forward with a 3%, that'll hopefully balance itself out in the long run.
Well, yeah, the numbers would be essentially the same.
Same, exactly.
Yeah, so, yeah, the council could do that. It wouldn't really change, what we're doing here in terms of making the budget adjustments to accommodate it. But
Okay.
but that's why we went 2+2. We did it last year. We wanted to have some seed money to be able to move ahead with Roadrunner if we could, because that's part of your strategic plan as well. If we start, if we did 4 right off the start, then I think that would really, we wouldn't be able to do, all the projects that we have. And, and this is something, that I think needs to be said as well. I've mentioned the 08-09 recession that lasted for 9 years, and nobody got raises during that time, and it was a very difficult time. We had a lot of houses in town that were in foreclosure. Revenues weren't coming in, and we made a determination with the councils at that time that we did not want to lay off any employees, so that did not occur. And so it's a very strange thing to say, but sometimes not giving raises is also what's best for the employees, depending on the situation that you're in. So, that particular time, was not good. This doesn't feel like that. I hope, this situation doesn't last as long. But, we can handle, this type of a proposal for this year, and we'll just make the adjustments that we need to make.
So Councilman Johnson said he likes that as well. 3% across the board. Is that something that we'll vote on come?
Not specifically, Mr. Mayor, it would be part of your overall budget.
It'd be part of the overall budget. Got it. Okay, got it. Any other discussion? Yes, sir.
Just real quick. When we look at other cities and obviously try to stay at, their rate, their market value, are steps looked at as well in that? So like how many steps we have versus how many steps they have, is all that part of the formula? How's that worked out into it?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Rodriguez, the steps are part of our classification and compensation plan. So those were established when the study was done back in 2014, 2015. It was done in 2014, implemented in 2015, I believe. So those are part of the plan, and the distance in between them, which ours is at 2%, is part of that plan. So no, we do not look at the steps annually.
Okay.
So, and the way steps work are, you don't have, we always try to do a step increase, but it's not limited just to that one step. So, for example, we went into COVID, came out, there was a lot of federal funding assistance. Actually, budgets did outperformed our wildest expectations during that time, and we were seeing upwards of 5 to 10% revenue growth during that particular point in time. So council made a concerted effort to add increased steps, during that time, and many of you were involved in that while we had the dollars to do that, because we had been falling way behind as a result of the recession. So we did a lot of work to bring us back to this point that we're at right now, and now we're starting to see us, fall back a little bit. So, I try to look forward, and certainly, adding the additional market adjustment, makes our job a little tougher probably for next year. But again, the upside is, hopefully we don't slide, as far back. So.
Thank you.
I already mentioned the lack of clarity from the state legislature as a future consideration. So the next steps is you'll have your tentative budget books on Friday. I know you guys are excited. And then the beginning of June are your one-on-one council meetings. And then June 10th through 12th is your special budget work sessions. Any questions?
Questions? No, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Go to item number 6, council executive report. Mr. Petruccio.
Okay, thank you, Mayor McCaw. Members of council, you have your executive report for March and April in your packets. So staff is here to answer any questions you have. Some highlights. we talked about the budget and the budget numbers, and certainly we're working on that. The annual service awards banquet is 11:30 on June 7th, which is a Friday, and employees certainly it's our most well-attended event of the year, so it's something that we take very seriously, and they love to see you guys out at that, so if you can make it, that would be great. The RAISE grant for Garden Avenue, we're hoping to hear from soon, which would be very helpful in a number of ways. One, it will take the place of the money that's budgeted to work on Garden Avenue this year, so that money could then be moved to another street maintenance project if we get that. It will also include funding, if successful, for continuing Fry Boulevard to 7th Street, and staff is going to be just touching base with the businesses to let them know what's going on there as well, because we haven't been back to do that for a little while. The Police Academy is graduating 6, and that's next week, so that'll be at Cochise College, so that's a good thing, and will get us back to full staffing, at least temporarily. so we'll see how that works out. It is fire season and snake season, so that keeps the fire department very busy, and we had a pretty substantial structure fire yesterday that they had to respond to as well. So we definitely want people to watch out. Of course, if there is a good fire season, the airport makes money because we sell gas to the Forest Service, but we don't like to do that at the expense of somebody suffering as a result of a fire. And then you'll notice transit ridership, is way up, so the free rides are working as far as getting ridership. We had 9,000, over 9,000 in March and 10,000 in April, right, Sharon? So that's quite a change. So I guess people like free rides, so that's working pretty good. And that's all I have right now, and then staff is available for any questions you guys might have about the rest of the report.
Questions, discussion on council executive report? Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chair. Yeah, the executive report's always a really great report to go through, and I hope that the public would go out there and take a look at it too, and can access it through the website. I wanted to just kind of bring attention to a few things in here. One of them in the Parks, Rec, and Library Department, the employee spotlight. I always love employee spotlight and things like that, but in this report, it's Daniel Coronado. He's one of the lifeguards, and he's works during the early morning shift, gets there at 5:30 a.m. so people can do the open lap swim. So I'm like, he gets to work earlier than me, so that's pretty, shout out to him. And he's currently studying nursing at Cochise College and hopes to be an RN, so I think that's pretty cool. So shout out to him, thanks for all that he does. People can get out there and do get their swimming on. And then in Public Works, all the different grants and stuff like that, I think that's really, really cool. I just want to put it in the universe that we love to accept grants and zero match grants too. So I do love to see that. So that's exciting to kind of go through that. And then a retirement, Jeffrey Bo Mullins is he just headed into retirement. Fun fact, he used to be our neighbor years ago. So he's a really cool guy. So it's really, congratulations to him. And I hope that he has great adventures and is able to enjoy his retirement as he goes out there. And then streets for wash maintenance. People get out there about once a year to do that. Some of the things that they do is removing garbage, trimming off dead vegetation, stabilizing it where there's erosion. There's hundreds and hundreds of acres out there. And so sometimes people get a little bit upset and nobody's taking care of our wash, but there's tons of washes that they take care of. So if anybody has any specific issues, what should they do?
Mr. Mayor, Councilwoman Landry, the best plan would be for them to call the Public Works Department, and we will get them through to the street section, and they can let them know when they were last in the neighborhood and when they plan to be there again.
Cool. And then I know that there's different neighborhood cleanup and stuff like that. So is that let's say there's a neighborhood and people are really concerned about the wash. There's opportunities for them to take it into their own hands and help us out?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, we do have an ADOPT program, and interested citizens can contact us, and we'll assign them a segment of the wash that they wish to adopt, and it's real easy. We'll provide the bags and the trash grabbers, and we just expect quarterly cleanups throughout the year.
Yeah, so if anybody is super concerned about their wash or they want to just kind of help out, they can always do that. It's a good way to get to know your neighbors, and so there's that available. So I just wanted to point that out. So share it with everybody you know, just in case sometimes people are not aware that that's available. And then the last thing I wanted to point out was in the police department, the JCMS School Resource Officer. So Tracy Grady is going to JCMS, and middle school and high school is kind of a scary place. So bless her for doing that. She's out there teaching awareness on different like bullies and social media, drugs and peer pressure. So I think that's really good. Sometimes some of the students out there maybe are not made aware of that, or they don't hear it from. So I feel like sometimes when kids that age, when they hear it from a professional, then I think sometimes they take it more seriously. So I really appreciate her going out there doing the Lord's work for real. And then employee of the quarter, Daryl Hall, was top performer for the last quarter. He's made a lot of really big help with making drug seizures and arrests, and they did have a really big seizure that they did at a residence. So that's really great to see that he's out there with his fellow officers keeping everything safe in the community. So I just wanted to give a shout out to them. I think it's really important. I love to see these different shout outs in the executive report, and that's all I got to say right now. Thank you.
Other discussion questions? That's it. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I mean, she pretty much covered everything I was going to say about it. Good. A lot of good information in this. I also like the mention of the OICC project, that mural on the back that we saw the ribbon cutting for the other day. If you haven't been to the back of the OICC, it's a beautiful, beautiful mural back there. I would love to see that all over the city. It's really, really cool. A lot of work went into that, so definitely want to thank them. And I'll thank them again probably at the meeting on Thursday, but if you haven't been to the back of the OICC, it looks a lot different. And that's kind of setting the way for maybe some future gardening projects and things like that back there. So really cool space back there. Yeah, also for Officer Hall, we always talk about people moving from California. He moved from California, so he was one of those good people from California that we got. So shout out to him for being a good person from California that comes out to our city and does good things. So.
Excellent. All right, so number Echo E, report on recent trips, meetings, and future meetings.
I have some more to say. No, I just wanted to let everybody know that the Transportation Commission, usually it's the first Wednesday of the month, but in June there's some scheduling kind of overlap or whatever, so it will be on the 12th. So it'll be up here in the conference room up here at 3:30. Anybody's welcome to attend. They can also catch meeting or past meetings online as well.
All right, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
The Tourism Commission will meet in July 1st at the OICC, and they're choosing to do it like every other month, just so it gives them their committees time to process all the stuff they're finding out. So that's working out really well for them. And then the Arts and Humanities Commission meeting and Culture Diversity will be June 12th at 4:30, also at the OICC.
All right.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And we have a planning and zoning public
Oh, yes,
meeting
we
for
have a public
the
meeting.
general plan update at the library. The 29th next week.
Mm-hmm.
For the Vista 2040 plan, general plan.
All right. And item number F, future discussion items, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're pretty budget focused at the moment, so I don't have anything specific in addition on my list, but that might change between now and the next work session.
With that, we are adjourned.